Hello everyone, welcome back to English Champion. I am going to talk about some student data today, and I'm going to take a slightly different position on some of it, not all of it, than I usually do. I'm usually quite harsh on how companies gather student data, college student data. And I've made many podcasts in the last year or so discussing how you cannot trust what college students say because they don't know what they want. If you ask a 19-year-old what he or she thinks he or she wants from their college degree or what their future is going to be like, they have no idea. All they spout back to you is what they've heard other people say or what their parents want them to say or what they think they want because it sounds good. And no, almost none of it is reliable. And so I always get very frustrated when survey companies ask these college kids or these high school age students, what they think they want or what colleges should do to serve them better, like they know anything about anything. All right. And then the worst part of that is these universities listen to those students and implement all these changes and new policies and new programs and start all these initiatives to try to serve those kids. And it turns out many of them don't even work, or the kids ended up not caring about them anyway. And so universities are spending tons of money listening to young people when the young people don't even know what they want. So any data in which students are projecting forward, they're saying, here's what I would like from my college degree or my college experience, you really have to take all of that with a grain of salt because, again, they don't know. They're just saying stuff. And so you can't listen that closely. And so I have an example of that. But then I'm going to show you an example of some data that I'm still a little leery about, but I'm going to have faith that this is honest. But the difference is this data is asking students after they've completed some college. They're looking backward now. So I think that's going to be a little bit more of an honest assessment because now it's not just here's what I think or what I hope or what I want. It's now here's what I actually did. And that is much more reliable data than kind of the looking forward perspective. So I'm going to share both with you. And I think the second group where the students are reflecting back, it offers us a glimmer of hope. I'm not usually too hopeful about the state of college these days, but I think there is a tiny piece of sunshine here that we can use. And the key will be, will schools even listen to this though? All right, because most data seem to indicate they are not listening. So let's take a quick look. A very simple graph here. So this is one of those that I looked at and I was like, oh, okay, here's why you can't trust what college kids say. All right, so this says heading into your program. So this is looking forward. They haven't started yet. This is what they're anticipating as they get into college. Heading into your program, are you concerned about any of the following? The number one concern over the last 2 years, as it probably should be, is something to do with finances and specifically balancing my schoolwork with my non-academic responsibilities. So when kids are having a job, they're trying to figure out their schedule and am I going to be able to afford this education while still maintaining some form of employment? Or could be maybe non-financial. Could be that I have to take care of my younger brothers and sisters, or I have sick parents I got to check in on every day, or whatever the situation is. These non-academic responsibilities. It's understandable that these are valid concerns for kids as they're entering their college studies. The second one, of course, same thing, being able to pay for my education. But the third one is really what caught me. This is where I was like, oh no, here we go. So the third highest, or it's actually the most consistent at 43% of students are worried about this. Notice what it says: having the motivation to do my schoolwork and to study. Okay, here's the problem. This is why you can't trust college kids. You've chosen to go to school, to a school. All right, just like you had the previous 13 years, that wasn't always your choice. This is your choice. You've chosen to attend a university. At universities, at least theoretically, you're supposed to do some schoolwork because after all, you're trying to get an education. And furthermore, you, in almost all instances, are paying for it, sometimes exorbitant sums of money to get this education. And yet, one of your biggest concerns about entering college is, well, will I care enough to actually do any homework? Like, that makes zero sense. And that's been the most consistent answer for the last 2 years at 43%. Why would you have this as a concern? After all, you chose it. No one's making you do this. and you're paying for it. So here's an analogy, and so you can see how dumb this is. So imagine, I often talk about gym memberships because it's a good analogy to make. This is like saying, well, I've chosen to sign up for a gym and I have to pay some money every month, but I just don't know if I'm going to be motivated to go. The question obviously would be, well, then why did you sign up for the gym? And why are you paying for something that you're not even sure you want to do? So I go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. Why? Because one, I have an intrinsic motivation that I like working out and I like being healthy, but also I'm paying for it. So I'm not going to pay for something and then not go. That's stupid. If I don't want it, if I'm not interested, if I'm not motivated, as it says, then I just shouldn't sign up for it. So the same thing with education. If you don't want to do it, you don't care about the education part, which requires the studying and the schoolwork part, then don't do it. This is what I've been saying for months now. We have to stop this idea that everyone has to go to college, because you don't. In fact, you don't even want to do it. You're having a hard time getting motivated to even study for something you signed up for and that you're paying money for. This makes no sense. So this is something that I used to tell my students in class years ago when I was first starting out. I was working at a community college, and it wasn't even that expensive because it's a community college. And yet I would have students who'd skip class, they wouldn't turn in homework and their grades would plummet and then they'd flunk. And when I started seeing this problem, I would tell them, here's how much money you spend every day to come here to this class. Okay? It's not a lot, but it's something. Every day you don't come, every day you don't do your work, every day you don't listen to the teacher trying to give you this knowledge that's going to help you pass and then hopefully be smarter and more successful. Every day you don't do that, it's like setting fire to that money. Why would you do that? Again, you chose to be here and you're paying for it. And yet, I'm not motivated. Well, then why do it in the first place? It makes no sense. So again, when I say, you can't trust anything college kids say, especially as they're preparing or looking forward to the college experience, they just don't know anything and they don't know what they want. And, again, some of this is common sense where you're like, well, of course they're going to be concerned about how they're going to pay for it and stuff like that. But when they're concerned about being motivated to study, the motivation comes in that, well, this is my field I'm going to go into because I really care about it and I'm excited to be good in this field so I can, be productive, a member of society, and maybe make a good income or whatever my goals are. Oh, by the way, I'm also paying a lot of money for this, so I better take it seriously. And yet there's some disconnect in these kids' heads where they think, well, I think I need to do this thing, but I also don't want to do this thing. Like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Don't do the thing. Don't go to college if you don't care about studying. If you don't get somewhat excited about schoolwork, because this is what it is. It's school. So you might want to get that straight before you sign up for these classes and spend all this money. The other interesting element of this, down here ranking 5th on this list, is succeeding academically. So this is an interesting, the way it's worded is interesting. Are you concerned about any of the following? So you could read this as the kids don't care about their academics, which kind of matches what they said on the third set of bars there, that they don't have much motivation. Or maybe they already know that college is going to be easy and so they don't need to be concerned about it. I would think you would need to be concerned because college is supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be challenging. It's supposed to prepare you for the real world, supposedly. So you would think succeeding academically would be higher, but actually it's not so much. So interesting data point there. All right. So there's just another example I saw this week of like data where you're like, what are college kids even thinking? Why would we listen to them? But then I came across this one. And this piece of information is even more interesting because this actually leads us towards how the schools are responding to these students. So this is investigating what factors lead to applications. Students continue to apply to colleges based primarily on academic and financial factors. Now here's the difference between this chart and the previous one. When admitted, students were asked which factors were most important to them when deciding where to apply. So this is past tense. So they've already done this. They've applied for their schooling, and now they're getting accepted, and they're asked, well, why did you go that direction? Why did you choose those schools to apply to and get accepted and choose to enroll at those places? And so this this backward looking data is much more interesting because this is what students actually did, as opposed to here's what I think I'm going to do, which is very unreliable. Here's the glimmer of hope for us. The number one answer of why did you choose to apply to certain colleges is academic quality. Thank goodness students said this. It makes me so happy that even though it's not by a wide margin, it is still the number one answer on this list of why are students picking certain schools. So if you're a school, you should take heart in knowing that if we focus on our academic quality, many students will still choose us. Okay? When, as we'll see on the rest of this list, so many schools are choosing other things to emphasize, academic quality is still the number one answer. So again, this makes me happy for the students that when it came down to it, even slightly above their finances, they chose the schools to apply to because of their academic quality. Now, notice at the other end of this list, before we look at the few in the middle, that academic quality does not necessarily correlate with any sort of institutional reputation. So when it says institutional reputation, which is the last on this list, which I think is a good thing as well, I'm taking that to mean not that they have a bad academic reputation, but that they're not like some name brand like Ivy League thing. I think they're probably getting at reputation, meaning, again, like what the culture has identified as this name brand university. So that's a good thing too. Students aren't caring so much that it is an Ivy League school or that it has this, long-standing tradition where all the rich and famous people went or something like that. It seems like students, for the most part, aren't caring about that very much, which is great because there are a lot of great schools out there that are sort of unknown from a reputational aspect. They're not an Ivy League name brand, and yet they're very good and they would be excellent for many types of students. So the top of the list and the bottom of the list are really good answers that I think are positive trends, as long as these keep going, for college students, that they are selecting things sort of in the right direction. That's the first thing you should be looking at is the quality of the academics, and you shouldn't care about name brand. You should be looking for a school that's the best fit for you, for what you want to accomplish academically. Second on the list was financial aid, and third was value for the cost. So again, the financial elements are the next highest. Employment prospects after graduation. This number is always so interesting to me because, again, this is something schools are spending a lot on, is all this career counseling kinds of stuff and placement and all this because they think that's what the kids want, when really that number is actually down the list a bit. You'd be better off investing your resources as a school into the quality of the instruction and less into the kind of career services stuff. But that's what students are doing, or schools are doing. And yet this is always so weird to me. Every time I see data on this where this is what the kids want. They want, because I saw another article recently about students were kind of frustrated that their school wasn't lining them up with jobs when they graduated. And I thought, that's so weird. I never in a million years when I was in school, I graduated 24 years ago, I never would have thought of that. I never would have thought it's the school's responsibility to get me a job. That thought never, ever crossed my mind. And maybe it's my own upbringing, my own like personal moral philosophy where it's like, I don't expect anybody to do anything for me. So why would you even think that? When I was in college, my thought was, I need to get good grades. I need to learn as much as I can so that I'm prepared to go out into the world on my own and figure out what I want to do and find my own work and move to wherever I want to move and make my own choices. I never thought that it's the school's responsibility to not only educate me, but also give me a direct job. Never would have thought of that. So it's so interesting that has, I don't know why that is. I think it's just all lumped in that young people today want everyone to do everything for them all the time, that they don't have to be responsible for making their own decisions, that the school should just bring on a platter. Here's all these jobs to choose from. We've given them to you. Now pick one. Again, maybe the kids think that's the cost of doing business. Like, hey, I'm paying all this money. Not only should you educate me, but you should also hand me a job when I leave here. I don't know what it is. But again, that thought never crossed my or my friends' minds when we were in school. We never said, boy, my school should really do a better job of giving me a job. pointing me to that company and getting me hired there. Never would have thought of that. So it's just very strange. Notice also further down the list in the middle, flexible program format, online courses, etc. That's halfway down the list. That's 12 percentage points lower than academic quality. So again, all these schools are investing millions upon millions of dollars because they think kids want flexible programs. And that's what they say they want, because I've actually talked about that data on other episodes, where when you ask them, they're like, here's what I think I want. But when you get down to it, why did you actually apply to that place? I was actually more towards the middle of the list. They didn't care about that as much. And yet schools are spending all this money. Oh, we've got to implement online programs because we got to get more students and give them more flexibility so they can take classes whenever they want. And they're spending all this energy trying to get students who want flexibility, when in fact that isn't near the top of the list for why kids are choosing your school. The kids are telling us after the fact, here's why I did what I did. So that's, again, much more reliable data than here's what I think I'm going to do later. This is actually their actual choices. They chose because of academic quality, not because you had some online program. Okay? They don't care about the flexibility as much as you think they do. Variety of other things, off-campus opportunities, also student organization societies and clubs. I would anticipate this would include things like sports as well. That number is way down the list. It's towards the bottom. So again, same thing. Schools are putting all this money. We need to offer all these extracurriculars because that's what's going to get the kids excited. It's like, no, not really. Yes, some of them. But overall, it's nowhere near the importance to your school as academic quality. Also at the bottom of the list, availability of student services, tutoring and advising. Again, millions of dollars going into, we got to have all these advisors so that, again, whether it's career counseling or just academic advising, and we've got to have all these tutors available so that kids can feel successful. It's like, yeah, you're spending all that money doing those things. And yes, a small fraction of those students specifically choose your school for that reason. But the number one answer on this list was, hey, offer me a quality education. Make it quality. Give me really good professors. Give me really good resources like labs and equipment and all that stuff that go in the classroom. Make that the best experience, and I'll apply there. That's where I'd like to go. That's what they're telling us. And yet, again, what do schools spend the least amount of money on? Many schools, the instruction side of it. They put a bunch of money towards all the extracurricular stuff. They put a bunch of money towards all the tutoring. They pay their highest professors to just do research in their office instead of actually teach, where it's like, maybe you should be paying for the best teachers, because after all, that's what the kids say they want, academic quality. The kids don't get academic quality because there's some scientist in a lab who never actually talks to students. Yeah, he might be doing very important things that are going to advance our culture in some way, but that has nothing to do with the academic quality of the classroom. Like, that guy never sees those students. Or if he does, he does one lecture a week and he has his TA do everything. Like, that's not the academic quality. The academic quality is good professors in the classroom truly guiding these students on their, future career path or their academic goals, whatever they're aiming at. That's academic quality. And yet that's the number that is diminishing on these college campuses. They keep paying their administrators through the roof. They keep spending all this money on the career services. They keep developing all their online stuff. And when you look at, well, for the kids, did you actually apply to this school? Those things were way down the list. When it still comes down to, at least according to this chart, is the kids want to be somewhere where they go, you know what? I think I'm getting good teaching here. I think I have access to good resources because, I want to major in biology and I need a good lab to work in. I need good equipment. And this school seems to have that, so I'm going to apply there. I like how those professors know all the students' names. I like that professor is a published author in his field, and he's going to be teaching me. That's what they want. At least that's what they said. So again, we can never fully trust these young people when they're reporting, but because this one is looking backward on what they actually already did, I think this set of data might be more useful and more accurate than others that I talk about on this program. Something to think about, I read a lot about as well, just to finish up here, one final point, is when kids are deciding where to go, I see a lot of people online talking about choosing a school and choosing a major based on return of investment. Okay, they talk about ROI, ROI. And I really just want to encourage people who talk about ROI regarding education to stop doing that. It's really not helpful, and it really distorts what education is supposed to be. Again, I know, look, I talk about economics all the time, so I understand the economics of it, that we make choices based on how much benefit we get in the long run. But when you talk about ROI, this return of investment, there's a certain connotation to that especially when you're talking to 18-year-olds who don't know anything, you're sort of just framing it in the terms of money. And in fact, I see a lot of people talk about it. If you major in this, you're going to make this much more money. It's like, well, maybe, that depends on the market and depends on how good you are at it. And all, there's a lot of factors that go into how you're paid later on. So just assuming that, well, if I join this major, I'm automatically going to make a bunch of money. That's just simply not true. Or if I go to this school, people from this school tend to earn higher salaries. Again, maybe, but everyone's different. All those things are also based on averages. And the fact that most people assume they're above average, kind of the Dunning-Kruger effect or the Lake Wobegon effect, where why would you assume you're above average? If that's the average, that on average, yes, people make more money if they go into this field or they go to that school, why would you assume you're on the top half of that average? It's very likely that you're on the bottom half. Because I'll be honest, people who ask those questions, like, what's the return on investment? What do I get out of it? Those are probably on the bottom half, because smart people don't really care about that stuff. Smart people go, I'll go wherever I want, and I'll go somewhere prestigious because I want to say that I went somewhere prestigious. But I'm smart enough, I'll figure it out. I'll get a good job. I'll make good money because I'm smart. That's how smart people think, all right? Lower intelligence people tend to think, well, what do I get out of it? Because you're thinking of the most superficial element of this, not the true education part, and you're ignoring like the work ethic that also goes into these things. So when people talk about ROI, it just further enhances the financial transaction nature of education, and that's something we want to really avoid. We have to stop talking about college as just something you're buying, because we have to be aiming higher than that. College and this pursuit of excellence and the life of flourishing and the true liberal arts goals of being a well-rounded person or just being a real scholar in a certain field, like all of those things are more important than, well, how much money do I get for this? If I'm going to do this for 4 years, what are you going to pay me? Like, that is such a bad way of thinking of education. And it's what's causing all these problems for how administrators are setting policies. It's for how teachers are grading. Like, when everything becomes a transaction, it all becomes worse. Okay. The other thing that goes on is, when you say return on investment, it sort of gets lumped into all the other investments we make in life. Okay. So, like many people, I invest in a bunch of stocks. I have tons of mutual funds and a bunch of stuff with 401ks and all the things that my wife and I have as we plan for our future retirement and beyond. When I am making those investments, I care very little about what they are. All right. All I'm looking at is, does this look like it's going to be successful based on its track record? Okay, I'll do it. Like, I don't really care about it. I don't care what business it's in. Most of the things I invest in are in fields I know nothing about. Okay. Some tech stuff or things with energy or things like that. It's like, I don't know anything about that stuff, but I think that's probably the way things are going, so I'm going to invest in it. Right? I don't need to participate in the intellectual, exercise of acquiring knowledge. I just see that it's going well. I think this is a good gamble to make, and so I put money on it, and then I watch over the next couple of months or years to see how it's doing, and that's all I have to do. I don't have to do anything with it. I just put my money in, and I sit back and I go, all right, you companies, go make me money, please. And then hopefully it does. Whereas in education, when we're investing in education, as I've said 1,000 times, yeah, your investment gets you in the door, but when you're there, you don't just get to sit back and go, all right, I invested, now you give me what I want, which is what we do with our stock portfolios, right? When you're at the school, then you have to do the work. You have to listen and learn from mentors and make tough choices on what your values are. And, is this a career path I really care about? Is this going to bring fulfillment to my life? Are these using my talents in the right way? You have lots of things to think about. When you're making stock investments, it's very superficial. So we don't want young people to be thinking of higher education like any other investment opportunity, and you're just looking for a return. That's really ridiculous, and that's, again, it's bad for education. So here's an academic example from my own life regarding this return on investment idea. I knew I wanted to go back to graduate school, and so I went and got my master's degree, okay, and started teaching community college. I then had to decide, well, do I want to go get my doctorate? From a return on investment standpoint, if money was all I was caring about, I actually didn't need to go do that. PhDs are very expensive and very time consuming. And so you're spending a lot and you're not sure what you're going to get out of it. Here in Arizona, because the community colleges pay so well, from a return on investment standpoint, it would have been smarter for me to just keep my master's degree and just stay teaching at the community college level. You can make more money teaching at the 2-year level here in Arizona than you can being a 4-year professor at a small private school. All right. Well, small private school is what I wanted to be a part of, or at least something 4-year. Okay. I wanted to be in a 4-year environment, and it's very hard to get a job as a professor in a 4-year university environment with only a master's degree. So I thought, I'm not doing this for money. It's because I want to be in a certain environment. And what I was basically investing in was my freedom. I wanted to be more free to work at any type of school in the country. I could stay at a 2-year school if I wanted, but I also wanted the option to go work at a 4-year school. And so I thought, well, I guess I'm going to pay all this money and spend all this time studying and writing a dissertation and, dealing with professors again and all that stuff for the next couple of years. So that's what I did. And that allowed me to then go get the job I actually wanted, which was in a 4-year environment. And especially in a small college environment, which again paid less money than I would have made at a 2-year environment, but I didn't care about the money. I wasn't looking at recouping my expenses for my PhD work. I didn't care about that. I thought, I'm buying my freedom here so that I can go wherever I want to go, either here in my state, or if I need to move to go somewhere else for an opportunity, I can do that because I have my PhD and I can go wherever I want. And I can work at any type of school for the rest of my life because, PhD is a terminal degree that you're qualified forever. And that's what I was buying. So from a return on investment standpoint, you got to figure out, well, what return do you want? When all we do is frame that return in terms of money. Well, what income can I get later? You're devaluing all of the other forms of investment that you're making, that the student could make. So again, I made it based on not finances. I knew I was going to have to spend a lot of money, and I just had to be okay with that because I was buying something actually intangible. I was buying freedom. I wasn't buying a higher salary. In fact, I got a lower salary. If I would have stayed where I was, I would have made more than what I ended up making. So you might say, well, that was a stupid investment. Yeah, maybe. But now I have the freedom to do anything I want. I can teach anywhere in the country or around the world that I want because I have the highest degree. So when you go to college, it's not just about the money. There are other factors involved that you need to decide on. Again, that's why you need to choose a school that nurtures those goals that you have. Because maybe you want to be a school teacher. Well, the ROI on being a teacher is really low. It's like, yeah, but that's what I want to do. I want to help third graders. I want to, help shape their life and get them excited about reading and math and all these things. Like, that's my goal. It's not how much money I make. It's because I care about kids and I want to teach them. Great. That's what you should do. That's your return. Whereas if you're only thinking about it in terms of money, or I want to be an artist. Yeah, I know the ROI on getting an art degree is not good, but I like creating. I want to learn about other artists. And so I want to be in this place where I've got these mentors showing me these techniques and teaching me these methods. And, I want to make that my life goal, is to make beautiful painting or write songs or sculpt or whatever it is you do. I don't really care how much money I make. If I can just eke out a living, that'd be great. But I'm doing this for myself because this is what brings me joy and this is what stretches my mind and fulfills me. Great. That's what you should do. You should pursue an education opportunity that is about your personal values and what your real return is, not what income return you might get. So there's just a little example from my own life of how, yeah, you might say I chose a really stupid return on investment because I ended up making less than I would have if I would have stayed where I was. But it made me way happier. I wanted to be in a different type of environment than what I was. And that was what was right for me. Other people can make their own decisions. That's totally fine. I have nothing against 2-year colleges. The one I worked at was great. I had no problems with it. I just wanted to be in a different type of environment where I could help students for longer than 2 years. I wanted to help students over the course of their whole career, and see them develop a little bit more towards adulthood, because that was just more fulfilling to me. But again, I was pursuing my own return on that investment, not a financial one. I've I, I I do coaching. I coach young people, high school and all the way down to middle school. And so, I love athletics and I love young people playing sports and all that. So I do some coaching. And when I'm out in the culture, I overhear in gyms or where parents are gathering, I often hear parents say, or the kids themselves say, well, I'm playing this sport because I want to get a college scholarship someday. And I always cringe and I think that's a really bad reason for playing a sport. Is that a benefit that might occur in the future? Yeah, maybe. And I hope it does for you. That would be great. But that's not the reason you play a sport. And again, that's something I never thought about when I was an athlete. All through my years playing, on my school teams from fifth grade all the way through college, I never thought, or up to college, and then, once you're in college, you don't worry about it as much. But like, I never thought I'm doing this so that I get a return on my investment in the form of a college scholarship. Never thought that. Why? Because I played sports because it was fun. I love competition. I love developing my skills. I like then putting them on display or up against other people and trying to beat them in some way. That's the pleasure I got out of all my years of playing sports. I never once thought, I'm doing this. I'm going through the drudgery of going to practice every day and having to travel to these games and deal with my coach yelling at me and all this stuff so that I can get a college scholarship, so I can make money out of this someday. I never thought that. And it's the same thing with education, where it's like, oh, I'm going to join this major or I'm going to go to that university so that I get a financial return later on. Like, that's a really bad way of thinking of your education, and it's going to leave you unfulfilled, just like it leaves a lot of kids unfulfilled in their sports. They grow to really dislike the sport because they're not doing it for the enjoyment of it, for the self challenge of getting better. They're just like, I got to put in the hours and I got to go to practice so that someday, hopefully, some coach gives me a scholarship. It's the same thing at the college level. Like, do we want to choose that major because I'm just hoping to make money off it? And again, why would you assume that's going to work? Because for many people, that's not how it goes. So as I keep saying, this just goes to the transactional nature of education and learning opportunities. And we want to really reduce that way of thinking as much as possible. So please, people out there talking about return on investment for your for choosing colleges, let's not do that. You're diminishing what education is supposed to be. You're lumping education in with job training, which it shouldn't be. Go watch my other videos. And again, you're just making it transactional where kids automatically start going, well, I paid, now you give me what I want. And that's not at all what education is. Ultimately, why students should choose certain schools, as I've said many episodes here, is because it's a good fit for you and your life goals, who you want to be and what you feel comfortable with. Because you can choose all sorts of things based on what the return on investment will be, and it'll make you miserable. I had friends who went to different universities than I did because, they had their own reasons, and part of it was return on investment. Part of it was just because the school had things they wanted, and there were very valid reasons. But I didn't want to go to those schools. I wanted to be in a different type of school. And so then there would be times where, I'd talk to them on the phone or we'd hang out on holiday breaks or whatever, and they would tell me these horror stories of what's going on at that school. And I would think, well, thank goodness I didn't go there because my values were different. Even if that leads to some sort of return on investment, I don't want to put up with that stuff. And so I went to this other type of school. And again, maybe they would think it worked out for them. I hope it did. But I know I went to a school that worked out for me based on, again, what is a good fit for my personality, for my goals, for my belief system, the type of social environment I wanted to be in. That's why I chose the school I did. It wasn't because I was looking for some return on my investment. I didn't think, oh, well, if I go to this school, I'm going to make more money. That thought never crossed my mind, ever. I went to a school based on the right fit for me. And that's what I constantly want to urge other young people to think about. Do not think of it as a financial transaction. Think of it in terms of what is the environment that I want to be in for 4 years? What am I willing to pay for it? And will that make me happier? Will it make me feel fulfilled? Will it help me be on the path toward pursuing my personal goals? Not the goals that the culture thinks I should want, that we all should be chasing, certain financial rewards, but what your goals are. And you'll be much better off. You'll be much happier if you make those choices. Choose the school that's the best fit for you. And on the college side, you need to be making your school a place that is the best fit for certain types of students. If you're running around, just like the chart said, and spending a bunch of money on all these extra services, when really what the kids want is, look, they want academic quality. They want a certain type of social environment where they feel comfortable, where they feel like they're being challenged, but also nurtured, and so that they can become the best version of themselves. Stop wasting your time and energy on all the frivolous stuff. Get back to the basics and be a good fit for a very specific type of student who wants what you're offering. And you'll have a great school. You'll have great students. They'll be a perfect match, and your school will flourish. So there's some data today. Hopefully that was a slightly different change of tone from other times where I just slam what college students say. This second chart I showed you today does provide a little bit of hope. The challenge, though, is going to come on the college side, that they start making better choices in providing the right environment for those students. But I'm happy to hear that many students still care about academic quality, and hopefully we get more schools that provide it. See you next time.